Hey, hello guys. My name is Vladimir. I work, as Michael already introduced me, I work as a product engineer at Framer, which is an Amsterdam startup working on a design tool. Well, you might heard of, also called Framer. And today I'd like to talk about, well, many things, but we'll focus on specifics of designer and developer collaborations, a problem of handoff, and why I believe it should must die. So let's go. So here's the brief agenda. In the beginning, we're gonna define the problem of handoff, what's wrong with it. Then we'll try to figure out if we can do better. Then we'll talk about more kind of related things, but not directly. Basically, touching upon how can we leverage the unique power of the web platform and the browser to basically bring back the fun of early days of web development, where all you needed was a URL, pretty much. And then we'll follow up with some conclusions, and then we'll have some time for questions. Okay, so what's the problem of handoff? Modern product development workflows usually require collaboration between groups of people with often non-overlapping skill sets. Among them, it's marketing, product management, design, engineering, etc. And we'll specifically focus on today. We'll focus on collaboration between design and engineering. Usually, those people working in those areas, they have their own unique tools, which they use for achieving, their goals of. One party would produce some design, usually in a design tool like Sketch or Figma or maybe Framer. Another group is engineering. They would use whatever programming language and technology are applicable for a product. Can be web development or some mobile framework. And the typical process of collaboration that you'll see in most of the companies these days includes usually a designer that produces some form of an image, basically, with some form of red lines, right? So, something like this, right? And then eventually, modern tools can do better than this a little bit, but in general, everything that you see as the handoff from designer to an engineer is a kind of an image that the engineer has to re-implement. So yeah, instead of this old-fashioned red lines, modern tools can give you something slightly better, a set of CSS properties, which you can directly use in your app and whatever, just display the sizes, the positions of the elements on the screen. Okay, continue from here. But essentially, this whole process is double work, right? So the engineering department usually needs to re-implement the same work that the designer has already done in a design tool. And most of the times, there are problems in translations. There are some issues. It's either, the target medium, like web platform, for example, wouldn't support some of the things that, the designer would put in their design. Or it might be that the engineer could be a little bit sloppy here and there and not implementing designs exactly. So it all leads not only to the waste of time because of the double work, but also like a bit of a, frustration from both parties. So I don't know how for you, but like for me, it's obvious that this process is just not ideal, and that's why I believe it must die. But can we do better than that? So, like, what can we offer as a replacement? Basically, my idea here is, what if designers and developers could, shake hands and work together or in parallel without wasting each other time and mental health in the process. But the problem is that we need tools that are built with this idea in mind. Because like most of the tools we have right now, they're focused on this old sort of workflow. Yeah, that's something that we at Framer have been busy working on recently, and we call it Handshake. So what is Handshake? Let me give you a quick demo. So let's set the stage real quick. Here I have our Framer website, which is just a regular Next.js project hosted on Vercel. Nothing special, just a React app. When running locally, you'll see something like this. Oh, okay. I need to run it actually. And start. Yeah. Let's give Webpack and a bunch of other stuff some time. Okay, here we go. So this is our actual production website, just run locally. Basically, now let's imagine that I'm a designer, probably like a new designer in the team, who thinks that this secondary button isn't optimal. I don't know. It's probably like was one of the engineers who implemented it or whatever. So hover state is sort of not sexy enough. Let me redo that and ask my fellow engineer to implement it eventually. So we're gonna do a quick one. We're gonna implement that button in Framer and then see how we can transfer it over to the production website. So let's quickly check what are we dealing with in terms of the size in the beginning. Okay. Okay, but I guess we can start with I think it was 52 or something pixels. 1 second. So create a rectangle. Pixels height. And yeah, for now it's fine. I'm gonna use some text. Let's start it. Center it. Add some fancy border radius. For the text, let's use our own custom fonts that we already have uploaded in Framer. This is the one. And now let's make it auto size. So basically it follows, with no padding. Actually padding 0.20 is what we want. Okay, does it look kind of similar? Yeah, more or less. Let's create a component out of it. Oh, okay, let me do one more thing. Let me wrap it into another stack. And I think we're fine. We can create a component out of it by pressing Command K or clicking create new component, call it our button, or let's call it cool button. Way better than the previous one. So the name should correspond. So now we are in the component view, right? So we can create multiple variants of the same component. This one is called primary by default, but let's whatever. Oh, okay. Primary it is. We can generate hover and press states. So let's start with the hover state. So this is where, I want to actually make things slightly better than on the original website and, implement some fancy interaction that this button will have on hover. Okay, so I have the stack here. Oh, this is a stack as well. Vertical. Let me duplicate it. Oh, sorry, not like that. This one, duplicate it. Gonna put like start, align, top. Okay. Yeah, a little bit of magic. Sorry, guys, for, and then get started now. Yeah, always like, demo effect and stuff. I'm a designer myself, so bear with me. Okay, so we don't want any gap between, guess the wrong one. Don't want any gap here. And then we don't want to, yeah, there we go. Okay, so what we've done is basically we created two elements inside of like nested divs sort of within our container div. You see that this the viewport, and we want we change the style of the second one, and we arrange them in a flexbox kind of container, and then so the only one of them is visible. But for the hover state, well, for the primary state, it's like the first one. For the hover state, we want to make the second one visible by basically doing this. Okay, get started. So this one needs to be white. Yes, okay. And let's align it. So it has to be center aligned. Yeah, pretty much. Okay. So all the, yeah, let me try and preview it. And here we go. Everything, like by default, we try to automatically add like magic animation to your different states of your components. So here you see that we've just like basically we're using different flex alignment in both variants, and we immediately have this like cool little interaction for free. So, but I don't want my work to die here, in Framer. I want it to be used on the website. So what do I need to do to actually carry it over? Well, this is where, the handshake process comes into play. Oh, yeah, okay, one more last thing. I think, let me see if, yeah, okay, so the text that we're having here is automatically, we're creating a property called title for it. So we can modify it, right? So let me go back to the main canvas, create a little wrapper that we can use for the preview. Oh, okay, let's give it some border as well. I kind of feel like it will look better with border. Yeah, so you see that now I have a property called title, which I can modify and say like sign up or anything, and my component automatically like adjusts to the size of the text. Everything that you would expect from normal, a HTML button, pretty much. Yeah, and we need one more thing, which is an interaction, I guess, but we're going to add it later. For now, let's start with copying that over to our website. So we have this nice little menu item here called Copyimport. And what it gives us is basically a native ESM import statement that imports this component from some URL, right? So bear with me, I will explain later how it works because, well, normally it's not something that, works out of the box in Next.js, but we're gonna try it. So we copy this. Okay, I think it's intro. We copy this button and put it here. Pull. And replace this old not cool button. Yeah, right here, speaking about Handoff and stuff, so we can open Handoff and see how, we can render this component in production. It's basically like one single property called title that we need to give it. So let's give it a title. C framer for teams. Okay. Yeah. So now it should recompile. Go back to our website. Boom. Okay. Well, it is there. And the cool animation kind of works. Well, it doesn't do anything right now, so you cannot click it, but we can say, like, fix it too. I mean, like, obviously we need to fix the layout now. We'll do that later. And now let's quickly assign a click handler to it. So what we need to do is go back into the component view, create another variable called event. Yeah, let's call it onClick. So now this component also should have an interaction. Oh, 1 second. Choose event onClick. Okay. So now we can do different things on click, and we should see an onClick handler. Oh, there's actually none here, but if we assign some action to it, like console log, yeah, we now see it in the handoff panel that, onClick it does something. Let's go ahead and use this newly created onClick handler. Production app. So we'll do something, but eventually we'll use just like location assign, I guess, to go to the Teams URL, but let's just see if it works at all. Yeah, okay, it works. Sorry, let's do the actual thing. Location, assign, Teams. And okay, go back in. Oh, we actually don't need to refresh even. Okay, clicking on it should take us to the Teams page. All right, here we go. So basically, whatever, it took us 5-10 minutes to implement a new component and make use of it in a Next.js website. So you might ask, how does it work? Okay, so let me reveal the magic. So what do we actually have? Okay, Copyimport. We actually import. So we import this URL. If you open this URL in your browser, you'll see that it will redirect to an immutable URL corresponding to a specific save, or basically a specific revision of the component that you've created in Framer. So moreover, each of these components also has like corresponding TSX file, which is like a source code for that. You can take a look. I mean, it's auto-generated code, right? So you probably don't want to read all of it, but important parts that we want to take a look at are, all these imports. You see that we are importing from bare module specifiers. Basically not URLs here. Well, we also import from URLs, but we import from bare module specifiers. And this is something that normally, we are quite familiar with in the setup of a, Webpack-based applications. But later, we'll take a look how we can make it work in the browser natively as well. So basically what's going on at the point when we pasted an import into Next.js app is Next.js is based upon Webpack. And Webpack has recently, we collaborated with the team at Vercel and Tobias, and they were kind enough to basically implement the support for URL imports. It is under experimental flag called experiments build HTTP. But once you enable that, Webpack will automatically fetch all the modules, all the modules graph from the URL, of a URL import in the source code, place it in a special kind of cache sort of vendor folder in your project, which you can just commit. So in case you're afraid of, okay, but what will happen in production, if that URL is not going to work anymore, whatever, my app is going to break. Not really, not in case of Webpack. So all your stuff is here, I guess. Oh no, so this TTF file, but this is the JS file. So everything is fetched locally, and you can commit it. It will become a part of your source code essentially. And then it becomes a part of your bundle, and all of those bare module specifiers that we've seen here, React, Framer, Motion, and Framer. Sorry, they will be resolved from your node modules. Just a combination of both worlds, right? So this is a remotely hosted module somewhere, but it becomes a part of your bundle and uses the dependencies from your bundle. But it's cool. Can we go further, or can we develop the idea of what ESM modules, native ESM modules in the browser can give us? Because this is what the feature is, this whole kind of, next generation of Framer sharing experience is built upon. Basically just an open standard. So each component is just like a regular ESM module that your browser can understand and execute, which means that, sharing your code, your ideas, your components becomes as easy as sending someone a URL. The problem is then, how would one use that URL? Okay, let's take a look if we can use it outside of Webpack or Next.js or any other fancy setup. I have a starter here. So this is a code sandbox. There's nothing here besides just a static HTML page, a couple of fonts, just a little bit of CSS, and an almost empty JS file. So what we want to do is to basically use the same components that we've just created in the browser normally. So again, copy the import. And browsers are kind of smart these days, right? They can understand ESM imports. They can even resolve them if you give it an HTML, an HTTP URL. Let's start with just, logging whatever we have. At this point, if we open it in a new tab, we'll probably see an exception. Yeah, exactly. So let's just refresh. What it says is, yeah, I cannot resolve this, some module specifier called React/JSX runtime, whatever it is. And I'm not even sure if we'll see it here. Oh yeah, we will, right? So, and the place where it chokes is basically here, right? So this is our module, our component file. And it has this import from React/JSX runtime, but browser has no idea like what that is. So browsers can understand, like the browser implementation of ESM can understand what URL is, not what bare module specifier is, like which version of React, where should I take it from? But luckily, recently, well, the new standard called Ember Maps was shipped in Chrome and basically standardized, more or less. I mean, we'll talk about other browsers in a sec, but it's called Ember Maps. So Ember Maps, yeah, I think this GitHub page is the right place for the documentation. So what Ember Map is a new kind of script that you can add to your HTML page. And that script, in that script, you can provide mapping between some module specifiers, can be bare module specifiers, you can even remap URLs. And like whatever actual file or whatever path or URL of the actual file, it should resolve to. So that the browser, whenever it encounters like moments, let's say moments, it will know that, okay, instead of this, I need to go and request this URL from the relatively to the HTML page where the Ember Map is included into, right? So you obviously can like manually handwrite those Ember Maps, but for any like significantly complex application out there, it will quickly, go out of hands because you might have nested dependencies which you're not necessarily are not aware of because like those are, transitive dependencies of your dependencies. So, but, web is a great place, and some generous people created a project called Generator. Yeah, let me clean it up. So this is a project that the author of JSPM CDN has created, and it allows you to basically compose an Ember Map for you. So, and this works like a restaurant menu. You can, okay, I want what I want. I want React, definitely. Okay, 1702, yeah, that works. Do I need a sub package like expert? Yeah, I need JSX runtime. So you see, as I select different things, they pop up here on the right side. Okay, I also need React DOM under that component. And by the way, the same generator is available as a script, or basically node script, or even like in browser implementation. So you can run that script anywhere, because the only thing it does is basically traverses a bunch of URLs it can do that from the browser even. JSPM generator. Here's the GitHub page. So check that out. It's a pretty sick tool. So yeah, that's how you use it from code. But anyways, let's continue with this one. So, okay, we've added React and React DOM. We also need Framer because we're going to use a Framer component, and this is like where a bunch of utilities are coming from. Yeah, 2.0 beta 6 is fine. I'll see that immediately, all of these are basically transitive dependencies of your direct dependencies. So you can see that editing this like manually will quickly get like out of hands. So that's why we need tooling for that. Okay, Framer is cool, and we need one more thing, which is Framer motion, because it's a pure dependency of Framer. And this is the fine version. Yeah, and let's add one more thing, which is HTM React, which is a little kind of helper, which provides a template literal that we can use as a replacement for JSX without compilation. Okay, so now basically we got our Ember map. Let's copy it. Let's go back into our start, and let's place it and like somewhere in head. The important part here is that you have to put it somewhere before the first occurrence of a script type module in your app, because like browser first needs to parse the Ember map before it tries to resolve, you know, any of the modules in your app. All right, so you see that our app actually started logging something. Yeah, we see display name, cool button. So now the browser is able to like completely resolve all the dependencies and actually give me my component. All right, so let's go ahead and actually render it. So for this, we're gonna need one more thing. We're gonna need HTML from HTM/React. Oh, one thing though, I believe sometimes, you know, when generator encounters dependencies that are not that are of different major versions, it will duplicate things, right? So in this case, React, we have HTM/React has a dependency on React, but it's like version 16 and we have like 17. So that's why I put another React here, but we can edit it and just remove it because we know we're not going to need it. We're fine with one. In fact, we want one instance of React on our page. Right, go back. So we have this HTML thing, and we need one more import render from React DOM. Cool. Let's render our components. Let me check once again what's the div that we have here. Yeah, it's called app. Okay, so the last argument is going to be document gets element by the app. And we're going to pass the component instance. Then I can call in the HTML tag template. And yeah, it's like a bit of a quirky syntax. You have to, well, but I mean, syntax is normal, right? The normal template literal. So we're gonna have like a cool button with some title. See Framer for Teams. And then on click handler, which is just a function. Well, at this point, let's just alert. Okay, it says Framer for Teams. Let's see Framer for Teams. Yeah, process is not defined. Okay, this is another typical problem of like working, you know, being on the bleeding edge and using like leveraging native ASM in the browser. That some code is written with an assumption that's going to be bundled eventually. Like, for example, a lot of code just uses, you know, this thing called process everywhere because it assumes that it's going to be run in Node. But luckily, it's not that hard to, you know, overcome that. Let's add another script tag. Script. Oh boy. Script. Yes. Okay. say global base dot purchase. It's an object that has a property env, and that one has node env of string production. Sweet. There we go. And we have our nice little framework component, which clicks and shows us framework for teams as it, promises. Yeah, so these are basically the workflows that are possible right now if your design tool starts embracing the web standards, the standards of the medium you're designing for. It also has more potential applications than just this, because what you can do now is basically you can build some sort of standard. Well, you can. None of the design tools right now are interoperable, right? They are all pretty much okay. The best case scenario, you can export something in the form of an image or something. A lot of times you will end up just okay, your design just lives in this tool and you can only take a look at that in the tool and whatever. That's, but if we start building around the common standards of the platform we are building for, we can actually achieve interoperability between different tools, between production apps and design tools. And we can just stop wasting our time and mental efforts for re-implementing the same things multiple times and arguing in the process, that kind of stuff. So, all right. So that was the demo. So in terms of the conclusions, we are happy enough to live in the times where technology finally allows us to efficiently implement the new ways of interoperability between design tools and the native medium they produce artifacts for. So this kind of stuff enables new workflows previously impossible to achieve. And this allows us to make a huge leap in quality and speed of product development. But still, we are still in the very early stage of the development of such technologies, and the browser adoption is sort of pretty whatever. It's just almost not there. Well, it is there for Chrome, but for other browsers, for example, the support of Ember Map, which is an exciting feature. The support for Ember Maps is only natively implemented in Chrome, but luckily you can add one little polyfill, basically this script, to make things work in Safari and Firefox and other browsers too. It will be slightly slower than Chrome natively, but you can start using these workflows today, which basically means your build process becomes optional, and you can basically share your ideas way more easily than you have ever been to. Yeah, this is it. That's everything that I had today, and I guess now I'm ready